Alrighty, welcome back to part two of the Steady Long episode, bridging the months of what starting back from April up into what's going to be happening on this summer and beyond. Um, to connect part one episode, let's say I will highlight the one of the things I said. The community was practicing um citizen power in its own institutions, even when the external systems denied it every wrong. So this is part two, the continuation of the standalone episode of SSQJ Chronicle. So if you have not watched part one, I would suggest you go back to watch part one, because what I say, it will make sense, but it won't make sense. I need you to get the full started, because this is a journey, baby. It's a whole journey. Um, I'm gonna try not to keep this as long as part one. But it's so much to unpack. It's so much to unpack. I'm starting to get these. I used to as a child I used to complain about these not complain. I used to talk about my dad. But he was long winded. He was long winded. He wasn't long winded with nothing else, but he was long winded with his word. It's just so much to unpack. This ain't a preachment, but it's so much to unpack. But I got so much to share with y'all. So stay tuned for July, for the rest of the month, years to come. Well, I don't know about how many years to come. I don't know how long the Lord gonna have me doing this, but let's get back into I'm finna start now. So where are we now? That's what we gonna start. That's where we starting from. Where are we now? So where does the black community sit on this ladder right now in 2026? I ain't gonna dive in to the voting rights act. I already took, like I told you, in in part one about what's going on in 2026, because that will lead me down a tangent, a spiraling tangent that would not be conducive. That's the word I'm looking for the purpose of this of these SSQ journals, this week's SSQ Chronicles. But if the Lord see fit, if He has me to do an episode about that, I'll do one. But for now, let's go. The honest answer to this question, about where we are now, is where we on the ladder. It's scattered. And I say that not with despair, but with clarity of someone who has looked at the ladder carefully, and cannot pretend that the picture is simpler than it is, because we all over the place right now. Some parts of the black community have made genuine progress toward the upper rings. There is black political representation at levels that would not have been imaginable in 1965. Okay, that is true. There is black wealth, black entrepreneurship, black institutional power in spaces that were deliberately closed for most of the nation's history. There is a generation of black professionals, black academics, black creatives, black community leaders who are operating with authority and influence that their grandparents could not have accessed. And simultaneously, the lower rings are not empty. So, okay. The manipulation rung is not empty. The therapy rung is not empty. The tokenism rungs are full of black faces in high places who have access without authority, visibility, or power, and without power. Or let me rephrase that. We got black faces in high places. They have access, but they ain't got the authority to go along with the access. they have visibility, but they ain't got the power to go along with the visibility. They have a seat at the table with the decisions, but they ain't making decisions at the table because the decisions have already been made. Okay? Y'all follow me? And the non-participation theory through mass incarceration, through voter suppression. I don't know why I'm projecting my voice. I need to be preserving my voice. Through economic exclusion, through the ongoing architecture of systems that were never dismantled. They were never dismantled. Think about it. Okay, let me. They were only rebranded. They were only repackaged. I'm going to try to control myself. The non-participation tier still has black people in it. Let me calm down. What? I said, let me calm down and then went up here. What looked like progress in some eras turned out to be simulation. Not always now, not always. But enough times that the pattern is recognizable. The system opens a door. The community moves toward it. And then the door closes again. Through a Supreme Court decision, through a policy reversal, through a slow withdrawal of resources that made the progress sustainable. And the community finds itself back on a lower rung, wondering what happened to the ground it thought it gained. Oh, did I mention is EOs, executive orders, reverse? Oh, okay. Because all them EOs Biden wrote. Trump. Reverse. Okay, I ain't going to there. I ain't going there. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a documented pattern. And naming it is not victimhood. Naming it is the first step toward addressing it with clear eyes and a strategy that does not depend on the goodwill of the system that built the ladder in the first place. Because here is the most important thing the ladder reveals. When you look at it honestly, every rung below citizen power is defined by the community's relationship to an external system. Manipulation, therapy, informing, consultation, placation. All of these positions exist in relationship to a power that is outside the community. The community is acted upon, consulted, managed, or included at the discretion of someone else. Oh! I'm sorry. That hit me. That was good. Only at the top tier, partnership, delegated power, and citizen control does the community become the primary agent of its own future. Only there does the power stop being something granted from the outside and started being something generated from within. And that shift from externally granted to internally generated is not primarily a political question. It is not primarily a policy question. It is a foundational question. It is a question about where your power comes from, who authorized it, what is it built on, and whether the foundation is strong enough to hold when the external systems do what they have always done. I want to go back. We gotta connect this to the word. What does the Bible say? I want to go back to this scripture that we have referenced before on this platform, SSQJ Chronicles. But I need to sit in it today. I need to sit in it today a little differently. It gonna hit a little differently today. What verse we going back into? Glad you asked. We going back to Genesis 1. Verse 28. God blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion. Pause right there. Because I know what you're saying. Girl, Susan, what that got to do with what we just been talking about? I know. Stick with this little brain that the Lord gave me, and hopefully it'll make some sense. What was the last word of that verse? Dominion. Dominion. That word, before Einstein and her letter, her theoretical letter with the citizen participation, before Jim Crow, before the Middle Passage, before any ladder was built by any human system, before Pharaoh, you feel me? God gave dominion, and he just didn't give dominion to the white folk. Because if you really want to ruffle some fellas, was Adam and Eve, were they? What? If we can go back, you might be surprised what the color of their skin was, but I ain't gonna go. That ain't mine. That ain't mine. That ain't mine. That ain't my jizz. Okay. God gave dominion not to a specific ethnicity. Not to a specific nation. Not at this time. But to humanity. This is before it. This is before Israel. This is before Abraham. This is before Noah. Back here, Genesis 1, God gave dominion to humanity. To the image bearers. Bearers. To the people he made in his own image. Excuse me. And I want to say something about what dominion actually means in this context, because it has been, I believe, misused. I ain't gonna go on my whole spirit about environmental stewardship and Genesis 1. Yeah, but for this context, let's say dominion has been weaponized as a justification for the exploitation of the earth, and yes, it's a justification for the exploitation of people. But the dominion of Genesis chapter 1 was never about exploitation. It was about stewardship. I told you, I ain't gonna touch environmental stewardship. That might have to be a whole nother. At this rate, I'm gonna have content for years. At this rate, it was about the image barriers of God's exercising creative, purposeful, accountable authority over what God made. God got this thought. Good. I'ma hold that thought. Okay. Over what God made, reflecting his character into every space that they inhabited. That is not the bottom. That is not the bottom of Ernestine's letter. That is not even at the top. Baby, that's above the ladder entirely. The ladder entirely. Because Ernestine's ladder describes the relationship between a community and a human system. Genesis chapter 1, verses 28 describes the relationship between humanity and God. And those beloveds, they are not the same. That is not the same framework. Baby, can't even compare. Okay? The Dominion mandate was not revoked by slavery. It was not suspended by Jim Crow. It was not diluted by redlining or urban renewal or mass incarceration or gerrymandering or any other system that human hands built to suppress it. That mandate is still active. The image is still present. The authority is still given. What has been stolen, suppressed, and systemically denied is the full expression of what was already there. And here is the question that this episode is building toward. Not the answer yet, but the question. If the mandate was given by God, if the authority is theological, hang with me, before it is political. If the power is God-given before it is system granted, then why have we been primarily looking to the system to give back what God had already gave? I know. It's tight. It's unusual. It's strange. Y'all thought I wasn't going here, right? Yeah. I didn't think I was gonna go here either. That is not a rhetorical question. That is the most practical, at least one of the most practical, important question the Black community, and specifically the Black church, needs to be sitting with right now. The Black church. Whew. I want to spend some time here because I think the Black church is the most important and most unutilized institution in the conversation about Black liberation and community power, at least within the 21st century, because in the 20th century, the Black church was up in there. Historically, the Black church was the space where the upper rings of Einstein's ladder were practiced, when every external system denied the Black community access to them. When Black people could not vote, the church was where civic leadership was developed. When Black people could not vote, the church was when Black people could not exercise cannot access white financial institutions, the Black church funded community enterprises. When Black children were denied quality education, the church built schools. When Black people needed legal representation, political organizing, social services, and community safety nets, the church provided them. The Black church was not just a spiritual institution, it was the community's most complete expression of citizen power. The civil rights movement was organized from Black churches. The strategies were developed in Black churches. The courage was sustained in Black churches. The theology that said our dignity is not granted by the state, it is given by God. That the theology was preached in the Black churches every Sunday. And it produced people who were willing to face fire hoses and police dogs and death itself because they knew their worth did not depend on the system's recognition of it. That is citizen power rooted in theological authority, and it is the most powerful combination that exists. Oh no, my mind is telling me not just theological. I gotta it's not just rooted in theological authority, but it's rooted in, I hope I can say this right, it just can, Christological authority. Hope I said that right. It just came to me. Because political power can be revoked. Economic power can be redistributed. Legal protections can be gutted by the Supreme Court decision, by the Supreme Court. But power that is rooted in the convention that God made you, God called you, God gave you dominion, and that no human system has the authority to permanently override what God ordained. There's a different kind of power, a different kind of authority. That is the kind that does not regress when the political winds shift. And that is why I want to say clearly and with full love and respect for the Black church, the Black church needs to reclaim its historical and rightful place in the work of social justice and Black liberation, not as a political institution, not as a, but as a theological one, a Christological one, as the institution that reminds the community that their power was never the system's to give, and therefore it cannot be the system to take. A song pop in my head, but I ain't gonna sing it. Somewhere along the way, and this is not a blanket indictment because there are Black churches doing this work faithfully right now, but somewhere along the way, the prophetic voice that made the Black church revolutionary, when I mean prophetic voices, I ain't talking about prophesying houses, cars, land, booze, and buets, and all this other stuff. But that perverted, but the perverted voice I'm talking about that spoke truth to power, or they just spoke the truth. It got quieter. As it means as to speaking as addressing the Black community. The comfort of the institution, it got quieter, but it's not quiet. The comfort of the institution, the pursuit of respectability, the desire to be welcomed, rather than conversational. These things are understandable and they are costly because the community needs the Black church to be what it has always been at its best. I hope I'm making sense. The place where the mandate is remembered, where the image is affirmed, where the authority is exercised, and where the people are equipped to climb the ladder with a foundation that there is no system that can pull out from under them. Yeah, those are from under them. So here is what I am going to leave you with today, this week. Not with an answer, Not with an answer, but with a question. Several questions, actually. And I want you to sit with them. Think about it. Write about it. Bring them to God about it. Talk about it with your community. Talk about your, talk about your community. Because I think the answers, your answers, the community's answers, are where the real work begins. Because it, first, if you map your own life until Einstein's ladder, not just politically, not just economically, but in every sphere where God has placed you, where are you? Are you being manipulated by systems that use your presence to legitimize decisions already made without you? Are you in the tokenism tier, consulted but not consequential, visible but not powerful? Are you operating in the upper, or are you operating in the upper rungs in genuine partnership with real authority, with the kind of citizen power that produces outcomes rather than appearances? I really want y'all to think about it. Really take some thought into it. Be introspective. Second, what has the Black community been primarily looking to for the restoration of what was taken? Because I want to say this clearly, and I want you to hear it in the spirit that is intended. Let me say this in a more calm tone. We cannot petition the oppressor for our liberation. Let me say it one more time, just because it might not have settled in your spirit the first time I said it. We cannot petition the oppressor for our liberation. I'm going to say it one more time for good measure. We cannot petition the oppressor for our liberation. Got me? We never could have. The systems that built the ladder, that placed the community at the bottom of it, that have repeatedly pulled the upper rings away every time real progress was made, those systems did not have the authority to restore what God made. They never did. Only the one who gave it can restore it. The Great Restorer. I'm sorry, you gotta go back to old series, previous series. Because the image was distorted, but God restored it. Okay. I'm sorry. Third, what would it look like for the Black community, and specifically the Black church, to stop primarily orienting toward the ladder and start primarily oriented toward the mandate? Not ignoring the systems, not pretending the ladder does not exist or that the rungs do not matter, but building from the inside out rather than from the bottom up. Building on a foundation that is theological before it is anything else. Building with the authority of Genesis chapter 1 verse 28 as the starting point rather than the destination. Because here is what I believe, and I say this as a devoted Black man who loves Jesus for real, and who has been sitting in scripture and in history and in this community. for some time, man. I mean, I've been black all my life and gonna continue to be black. The liberation of the black community needs the real kind, the lasting kind, the kind that does not regress. When the next pharaoh takes over, the liberation does not begin with the system. It begins with God. It begins inwardly, personally, and community. It begins with the recognition that what was taken was always ours because God gave it, and what God gives cannot be permanently revoked by what man builds. That is not passivity. That is not retreat. That is the most radical, most confrontational, most dangerous thing a community can do in the face of a system that has spent 400 years trying to, over really 400, trying to convince them that that power is the system's to grasp. Going to God first, rebuilding from the inside out, taking responsibility for the mandate instead of waiting for the system to honor it. That is where this goes now. And what that looks like in practice in your life, in this community, in spheres of influences God has placed in. That is where the conversation July and August and beyond is about. I told you this one was going to require something from you. Sit with it, bring it to God, and come back next month. Come back for next month because the activation is waiting. Onward still. And this has been another SSQJ Chronicle. See you next month.